the fact that the interest rates are lower now than at 17%, the fact is people got bigger mortgages, and those mortgages are eating up more of people's income to pay those interest repayments. So it's really about the size of the mortgage, less so about the interest rate.
Well, welcome to the program.
It's great to be here.
Well, look, there we have it. Households are under more pressure now than they were in the late 1980s with extremely high interest rates. Now, this puts the intergenerational argument about house prices and mortgage pressures to bed, surely.
Yeah, and what we've seen is that in the last sort of 2 or 3 years, households have been spending about 6% of their income on interest repayments. We rewind to sort of that period in the late 80s when interest rates were about 17%. It was a bit less than 6% there. So we can certainly see the current households are burning more of their income on interest repayments than that 17% generation.
Which I guess leads to the next point. So the key here is the link between record high property prices and therefore the size of the loans required by borrowers, right?
Yeah, the fact that the interest rates are lower now than at 17%, the fact is people got bigger mortgages, and those mortgages are eating up more of people's income to pay those interest repayments. So it's really about the size of the mortgage, less so about the interest rate.
Now, your analysis compares interest rates payments or interest payments to incomes as an average across all households. But which cohort is carrying the heaviest financial burden?
Yeah, and this is where we're a little bit lacking on data, but what we know from previous ABS reports is that sort of that 25 to 34 and 34 to 44 age groups, they're the one with the biggest mortgages. So they're the ones which have purchased most recently and had less time to pay down debts, but also they've purchased when home loans have been much larger. So they're really feeling the bite.
And it's hardly fair, is it, on that particular cohort? I mean, they're really feeling it.
Yeah, and probably it's people who have bought in the last 2 or 3 years. They've got the large mortgages. They probably haven't built up much of an offset if they have that option there. So they're the ones that are really feeling it. Recent home buyers, especially in the big capital cities like Sydney and Melbourne.
We have been comparing the current cohort with the late 1980s, but surely that cohort that we've just been speaking about, the new borrowers with big mortgages, they'd have to be under the most financial strain since the Depression, surely.
Yeah, and this is where kind of it becomes a little bit relative. You think about that late 80s cohort, a lot of them would have had a single income, one breadwinner in their household during that period. And also during that period, unemployment was much higher. So in the recession of the early 90s, unemployment kind of touched 10%. You compare it to now, you've got households who have got usually 2 incomes, unemployment's less than 4.5%. So thinking about the stress around the kitchen table, that late 80s was like, well, if someone loses a job in the household, we're in a lot of trouble. Whereas now it's like, well, there's a possibility we won't lose a job, but we still have a second income to fall back on until we sort of work our way through these things.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Look, you've also found that Victorian households are currently paying the highest interest payments as a share of household income in the country at 6.9%. Why is that?
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of a symptom of success for the Victorian housing market. Over the last 4 or 5 years, Victoria's been more affordable than New South Wales. It's now more affordable than Queensland and Western Australia. So we've seen more homeowners come into the market in Victoria. And just the fact there's more homeowners, there's more mortgages and more interest repayments. So the fact that Victoria is a bit high is kind of a bit of a symptom of success of higher home ownership rates in Victoria.
So is there any relief in sight for these debt-stressed households?
Well, like, it's a bit of bad news that we know that this most recent data we looked at ended in the March quarter. When we get to the June quarter, we'll have those 3 interest rate rises early in the year flowing fully through. So interest payments will kind of tick up a bit. Then there might be another interest rate rise later in the year. So there's no relief in terms of interest rates in the foreseeable future. And the other kind of challenge compared to previous generations, it's the big loans which are the big drivers here. Interest rates might fall, but people are still left with very large mortgages. They're going to have a large burden. So for first home buyers who've purchased recently, it's going to be a bit of a grind for the next 12, 18, 24 months until we might see some interest rate relief then.
But as you've mentioned, it is good and relatively better for those who actually have a job. Terry Rawnsley, it's really great to get your insights. Thanks for joining the business.
Thanks, David.